longer fear the unknown, 'cause I know what I am here for. I keep on trotting on my own path, keep on learning from my present and past, yeah. When I no longer need validation, 'cause my story is long and I'm patient. I know that I have lessons to learn, keep my eyes open each step I earn, yeah. No need for me to feel alone, 'cause I got a place that I call home. Every single road travel, every single new place, I come back home, they accept me with grace, yeah. When I know that I was meant to be here, and I know that I was born into fear, but I will stand tall in the lion's den, 'cause I know in my heart I am one of them. That there are lies in the facets of everything that we see.
Welcome to the Fuck Fentanyl podcast. I'm Luis Romero. I'm the Fuck Fentanyl guy. And today I got a really special guest. I have my friend Sage. How are you doing, Sage?
Hi, Luis. I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me.
Ah, nice. I'm feeling irie after listening to that.
It's a great song, right?
Let's see here. Wow. Well, Sage is one of my friends, but Sage honestly is like one of the women I really like look up to and really respect. She does so much for the recovery community here in San Diego, and I have gotten pieces of her story from her shares, and she's definitely been through a lot, and I would love it if you could share it with my audience today.
Sure. You want me to start at the beginning?
Start it off beginning, from birth.
Okay, great. Well, I was born into a dope house.
Nice.
Yeah. My mom was an addict, and, my father was very abusive. And my mother had me, she would give me alcohol when I was 6 months old,
Oh, wow.
and not like to, numb the gums, like, they used to say, you give it to numb the gums, but she would do it to shut me up, and put me out. And so, that kind of was like the trajectory, right? Like I learned from a really early age that how I was feeling wasn't okay, Yeah. And so, that's kind of the theme of my childhood, and my father started smoking weed with me when I was 2 years old. Oh, and, wow. He had me rolling joints by the time I was 5.
Shit, you knew how to roll?
I swear to God, yeah. Damn. Yeah, and I would see he would leave, his half of joints in the ashtray, and I was allowed to just grab them and light them up whenever I wanted to, and
wow.
And so I started really early. That was the only life that I knew. Mm-hmm. My father was very abusive, and he wasn't so much like my mother was a junkie. She was an addict, like. Okay. And so she would take off for, a lot of the time. Yeah. And my father, he was actually my stepdad. He married my mom when I was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And so, he stayed angry all the time because he was with my mom, probably, and she would run off and be, doing what she does, what addicts do best, right?
Right.
And he was left with me. And so I think I got the brunt of that a lot. And
he was like frustrated.
He was frustrated, and I was told to be quiet and not talk, So my disease first manifested really for me in like fantasy, where I would like go into my room, alone, and I would have this fantasy about, whatever it was, and the love and life, being better than it was. I always wanted something better and more, Mm-hmm. And I remember, it's funny because I was just doing some deep core work yesterday, and I was remembering the moments, of my childhood, some more moments. And there was this moment where I remember thinking, why did you have me if you couldn't love me, and like I didn't ask to be here. Yeah. And that core wound just kind of stuck with me, and, anyway. And so that's kind of the theme of what happened for me, is that. And yeah, so anyway, from like the young age, I couldn't see that my father's violence at the time was, justified. All I knew is that he was the mean guy, my mom was gone, and I blamed him. I blamed him because she would, as an addict, of course, used him as an excuse to run away. you know, so I would blame him. But really, you know, it's like they both were just, you know, where they were at. But I would chase my mom and chase her love, you know, and try, and she could do no wrong in my eyes. Like, no matter what happened, I held her on a pedestal, you know, and my father in my mind was this monster, you know, and we just didn't get along. He was my nemesis. And, you know, yeah. And so.
Was he like a disciplinarian and all that? Yeah,
well, he was very violent, you know, and he was abusive, and he was a disciplinarian. But, you know, it's like, you know, I just like, you know, I remember even just spilling milk in the kitchen, you know, and he just came unglued at me spilling milk, you know, and so from that moment I was so afraid to like spill anything that like I would literally shake going in the kitchen, and and I would always spill something, you know, so like I would always get and I would always get it, you know. And so like just growing up in that kind of you know, I don't want to say traumatic environment, you know what I mean?
Of course,
it really does like put stuff, you know, it instills you with certain things that, you know, that you know, just that feeling of never being good enough. That feeling of like there's something wrong with me. Like I'm broken, you know? And so, you know, like many of us feel that way, you know, as I've come to discover, is like we all share that, you know, just never feeling like we fit in, never feeling good enough, you know? And that was definitely my story, you know? And I met my sister, I was 10 years old and she was 13, and she was a street kid. And I met her, and she was this cool kid that like was popular, and you know, and I wanted to be just like her, you know. And so I ended up bringing her home, and I asked if we could keep her, and we ended up adopting her.
Wow.
And she was my sister, you know, and with her I got to do all the things, you know, and I started using, you know, cocaine. I think my first time using, I was 10 years old, you know, and the drinking, you know, we started with the drinking and the cocaine, and you know, and one day I was looking for change out of my mom's purse, and I came across her because I was a thief from an early age.
Oh, wow.
So I used to go into their stuff so I could get change, and go buy candy, because I was a food addict big time, you know. And
Gotcha.
anyway, so I was going in her purse to find some change for the vending machines, and I opened up what I thought was a change purse, and it was a paraphernalia kit, right?
Oh,
and I opened it up, and there was like vial of meth, and there was there was a gold spoon that said Foxy Lady on it.
Foxy
right?
Lady,
yeah.
wow.
You know, and the gold tutor, and it was like fancy. And the friend that I had with me, she had done meth before, right? Because I kind of like gravitated towards the knuckleheads, you know? Yeah. From an early age.
She was cool. She had already done it. And
So she showed me how. So she took the spoon and she put it in the vial and she snorted it, you know? And so I followed suit, and I took a big old rock and snorted it, not knowing. And like, oh, it was so painful. But I was like, I fell in love, you know? Immediately, that was the beginning for me. And I would steal her meth for many years, or not many years, but for a year and a half.
Would she notice?
She thought it was her dope dealer shorting her. Yeah. She thought it was her dope dealer shorting her. And so, you know, it's so funny. You know, she finally figured it out, you know, and and then she realized that I was using, you know, and it's crazy. And, you know, my sister and I were both using. And for me, you know, I still had to go to school, and I still had to do the stuff, but she got away with everything, like, because she wasn't the real kid. So they let her stay home. They let her, you know, they took her shopping and stuff. And like for me, I had to, you know, and I see that they were trying to instill value in me, I guess, or, you know, character, you know, because they would make me work for any money that I got, you know, and like doing dishes for whatever, you know, money. But she got to be taking shopping and all this. So in my head, for someone that felt like, for someone who already felt like she was unloved, that just proved to me more that like, oh, you love her more, right? Or I'm not loved. And so, yeah, right.
It's kind of like Cinderella in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
it was, and I get where they're coming, where they were trying to come from now, but yeah, so, I started to kind of resent her a little bit,
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, so, moving forward, I want to talk about junior high school, right?
Okay,
So I never fit in. And because of that,
Really?
like, yeah, I mean, I was the one that like just didn't fit in with anyone except for, the drug addicts, and so I would steal weed from my dad's stash and I would take it to school and like, and share it with my friends, that we would go ditch at lunchtime and like, and that's how I felt valuable. I know that like, I remember just being like really needy with love, and I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that I wanted friends and I wanted to feel love, and like, I'm sure it came off as like needy. And so I was not popular, and so that's where I found validation is like being the one that had something that people wanted,
Right.
And, in junior high school, I was bullied, quite a bit.
Wow.
And one of the worst days of my life, I was graduating that 7th to 8th grade, right? And we all get up on stage to get your diploma, right? And it goes in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
So I'm R, so I
Yes.
was near the end. And, you get up, you get your diploma, you shake the principal's hand and the whole school claps and it's like amazing, right?
Yeah.
I get up and I had my best friend there from out of town and my parents there and everything. I got up and I went to go grab my diploma and shake the principal's hand and the whole school booed.
What?
The whole
Oh my
school
God.
booed.
What?
Yeah. And my legs went out from under me and I couldn't breathe.
Oh my
And,
God.
And so I was like wobbling, trying to get off that stage, I was just shaking. And in that moment, in that day, like I literally snapped, right? Like I really see how people become, like they do, they become, school shooters, and go nuts and take it out on everyone. I see that because in that moment I snapped, but what happened for me was, I was kind of passive up until that point. And I had made a decision in me that no one was ever going to pick on me ever again, and I set out to beat up everybody that ever picked on me. And I did that,
Oh,
and
wow,
I became really violent, and violence became a huge coping skill for me throughout my life.
Well, I can imagine you're so hurt and embarrassed and you're just going to take it out on them,
Yeah, and so that's what happened. And somehow, throughout hating those people, I became those people, it's like I became the bully,
Yeah.
and
That's usually like the cycle of how that all starts.
yeah. And so, that took me all the places you would think it took me, anyway, I got kicked out of my house when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
It was that summer of that, it kind of escalated. All my acting out at that moment was like, it hit the fan and
angry.
I was
kid.
angry, and I tried to stab my stepdad, and,
Oh, wow.
I had a lot of rage in me, a lot of rage and a lot of pain, and I didn't know what to do with it, and so it was just coming out everywhere. And so my father kicked me out when I was 12 years old, and my mother had left him, and she left me there at that time. I won't get into all that, but she left him and he kicked me out.
Okay.
And so, I spent a lot of time, on the streets. Not, at 12 years old,
Wow.
I would like try and get a job, but they won't hire you.
Not at all. Not at all.
I tried. I'm like, I lied. I'm like, they want you to have the work permit. And like, I couldn't even finish school. I tried to get to school and I couldn't make it, and so, so I house hopped from place to place and, and nobody taught me about boys, I didn't I didn't have that kind of guidance, and so, I thought that, that if I was with you, then you liked me, right? And so like, you know, I ended up being very promiscuous and learning the hard way, you know, that was not the way to go. And so that took me down that road. And, yeah, you know, so it's just kind of like the beginning of my story, and that just kind of like continues, you know, and escalates and gets more just like it does for most of us, you know. I ended up, you know, doing a lot of jail time and a lot of prison time, and you know, and in the middle of that, you know, I met the love of my life, and I actually met him when I was like 14 years old.
Oh, really?
But we didn't.
How old was he?
He was 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So I was 14. He was 3 years older than me, but all we did was like hold hands, and you know, I met him then. But
wow.
Yeah.
And then when you guys were in a relationship, how old were you guys?
I was 22 when we started in our relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I skipped a lot of years because I'm going to tell you, like on the streets, you know, all the things. I gravitated to what I considered family, right? Like the first sense of family in my life. And I went to, you know, all the street kids, and we, you know, and I learned that lifestyle, and that was, you know, that it felt like home for me, you know, and so there was a lot of that, you know, but
I can relate to that.
Yeah, all the things that you can imagine, right? It's like they all went with that. And, you know, and I became a stripper, you know, because my mom was a stripper, and
you know, it was good money.
yeah, and a hooker, and she was a porn star, you know.
Oh,
and so
wow.
like I know.
Did it all.
Yeah, she did all that. And so, you know, I knew the owner, and and that was like where she worked. That was the first place I went to go get a job, you know. And so that was part of my story. And anyway, so I ended up getting together with the love of my life when I was 22 years old.
22 years old.
Yeah, and for the first time in my life, you know, I met someone that loved me unconditionally. You know, I had never experienced unconditional love before, you know, not from my mom, not from my father. I'd never experienced that, you know, and it was amazing. And I truly am grateful to him for showing me what that feels like, and that I'm worth loving, because up until that moment, I didn't even know it, you know? So he gave me, you know, that beginning of, you know, self-love, you know, just realizing that I was worth it. And, but, you know, many years later is how, you know, that it grew, right?
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, I ended up going to prison again. We had gotten married. I was 23 years old. And, and while I was in, he got more time, and we kind of spent time like that back and forth.
Oh, you and him were both in that prison while you're married?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and he got out, you know, after I waited for him. You know, I waited for him 7 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
so you waited 7 years for your husband to get out of prison, and what happened after that?
I actually kind of want to go back.
Okay.
A little bit.
Let's go.
You know, I feel like I missed a huge chunk of my story in this.
All right,
you know, and that's that. You know, like before my husband, right? It's like I got validation from men, right?
Okay.
And like many of us do. But that's like the only place where I felt valuable or self-worth or any type of love. It's like if you wanted me, you know, then I was valuable, you know? And so, of course, I became a stripper, you know?
Yeah.
Because that really did give me that sense of value, that sense of I matter, you know?
The
and
instant gratification.
Right, exactly. And so that was a huge drug for me. Like that was huge for me. Like that was probably one of my biggest addictions with men, you know, and that validation that I got, because I was so empty and so I was so empty. You know, I just had this huge void, and that's the only place I felt valuable. You know, and so I did that, and I set out to like be the best stripper, and you know, and
that's right.
You know, and like, but that's because like I wanted to be just like when I was younger, you know, and I had what somebody wanted, you know, so I got the weed so that they would like me. It's like if I was the best and I made the most money, and I, you know, ended up becoming the manager of the strip clubs, which I did, right?
Oh, right on.
then you know, then I would be needed. I would be valued. You know, I would matter. And so it really did like play. I was constantly just trying to fill this hole, and with outside validation.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part for me, and my husband, I think, was the first authentic, relationship where it's like I just felt seen for me, and unconditionally loved, and I'm so grateful for that. So I wanted to share that a little bit before I talk about, the rest of the story.
Of course.
And that's that. So anyway, so I went to prison, I got out, and my husband had went in by the time I was out. He couldn't handle life without me. So, it wasn't the healthiest relationships because we were still very codependent on each other. I think we resonated with each other's trauma, but we loved each other unconditionally and felt like home, And so anyway, so he was in prison and I waited for him. And during this time, I was going to try and get clean. And so my mother, she had actually gotten clean when I was 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she tried to bring me to my first NA meeting.
Oh, she tried when you were 17?
Yes. And I looked around and I was like, oh God, back then you guys did bowling for fun.
Oh, yay. Bowling.
So 17 years old and bowling on Tuesdays just did not seem like fun to me.
Oh, it did it? Bowling with clean and sober people on a Tuesday? A 17-year-old wouldn't want to do that.
And it was a bunch of old people because back then there wasn't the young population that there is now.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and so I was like, these are a bunch of squares and a bunch of losers, and this is good for you. You need it.
Yeah, you need it. I don't.
I don't need this, and so it didn't.
You're ready to be a stripper, and
right, exactly. And honestly, I had this this victim mentality where it's like, you made me like this. You made me like this, trying to be a mom now and show me the way at 17 years old is a bit late,
I could see that.
So it didn't stick.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So it didn't stick, and so, so at this time though, the seed did get planted. And so at this time when he got out, when he was in, and I decided that like I was going to, hold it down and I was going to get clean and I was going to go to meetings. And that way when he got out, we would be able to have that happy life that, that we wanted. And so I tried that and I got 3 years clean.
Oh, wow.
And
how old were you at this time?
I was 26.
Oh, wow. So you were pretty young still.
Yeah. Well, I was 26 when I got out of prison. And so that's when I went into recovery, and then, and I can tell you about the times before, because actually there was a lot. I went into recovery a couple times,
A few times.
Yeah.
But this one was kind of the one that kind of stuck.
This was the one that began to stick, and so, so I decided I was going to try and do this program, this 12-step program and see if it worked for me. And I did it, but I did it kind of surface level. I still was like, I had so much guilt and shame at all the stuff that I had done. There was so many things that like, they talk about our yets, right? Like we talk about all the things. Yeah, well, I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad. I'll never be like you. And I remember thinking that about my mom and about my dad. And, and I ended up going to all those places. I ended up being the violent guy like my father. And I ended up being the stripper hooker like my mother, I ended up doing all those things. And as a result of that, I carried a lot of guilt and shame, and I didn't like myself. And because I didn't like myself, I had to put on this facade of who I thought you wanted me to be so that I could be loved, And so I was not fully willing to be honest, when I did that first round of steps.
Yeah. And
so everything was kind of surface level, and I left out some very important things.
Resentments like that, some stuff like that.
The resentments I was able to deal with. It was more about the guilt and shame. Okay. The areas that like I wanted to keep hidden forever. I didn't want anyone to know, that I had done these things. I see. And because if they did, they wouldn't see me anymore. They wouldn't like me. They wouldn't love me, So I held secrets. and I didn't, and you know, I didn't catch it then. I do now, you know, but like then, you know, our readings say the only thing that it's indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right? And that honesty in our book, without that, there is no hope. There's no hope. And I didn't hear that part, you know, I never really got that. I understand that now. We have to have that 100% honesty. So, you know, I did end up getting 3 years clean. I had surface level recovery.
Surface level, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't heal. You know, I didn't have the freedom that everybody talked about. I did learn how to be a responsible person, you know, and I got a house and all that stuff.
Ooh,
but like I didn't know how to heal what was going on inside. And my sponsor, I'd put her on this pedestal, and when she did something that I viewed as betrayed me, I let that take me out, and I left the rooms.
Really?
And I said, you know what? I'm going to try and do this on my own. And I did that kind of successfully for like 7 years. You can call it successfully, right? It's like it successfully for the fact that I didn't use drugs.
Yeah.
You know? But I definitely continued to use men and money became my primary addiction.
Yes. You were filling the hole with all those things instead of drugs.
Right.
That void.
Yeah, but inside I was still that same wounded, you know, very, very closed person, you know, and I didn't have any freedom. And so as a result of that, you know, my husband got out of prison finally, and you know, and things were not the same anymore. Like he, you know, I had done some things while he was in there because of course I was, you know, I needed validation. And so, so, you know, I did the things that a wife probably shouldn't do, you know, and, and as a result, we lost some trust. And that was one of the things that we always had, was we always told each other everything, you know, and, so when he got out, the dynamic changed a little bit, you know, and he was more, you know, looking through my drawers and that kind of stuff. You know, and so, we had argued a lot, and he ended up, relapsing, you know, a couple years later.
Okay. And so he was clean while he was in prison?
Clean. Yeah. He had 7.5 years clean.
Wow.
And he ended up relapsing, you know, and I kicked him out. I was like, well, that's it. You know, you're using, you're gone. And, he slept with one of my friends.
Oh, Jesus.
Which was like the big no-no. That was the one thing.
Wow.
Yes. And that was the one thing that we had this commitment that we would never sleep with anybody's friends or anybody's friends, you know, and he did that. And so I was like this righteously indignant person, and, you know, and I was like, no, you guys are perfect for each other. And I didn't want him to come back home, you know, and I just held that, you know, I was stubborn. I was very stubborn, you know, and knowing the whole time that like there's nobody else that I would want to grow old with. Like I loved him, you know, I just got in my own way. I didn't know how to heal things, and the pain inside of me, you know, ran the show for everything in my life, you know? And so like, that's one thing that it ran the show on. And I ended up dating this other guy, you know, who I had known since we were kids. And he ended up wanting to do heroin. And I had done that, you know, throughout my life, you know, many times. However, I didn't like it, because when you're on meth and you do heroin, sometimes there's a little reaction that happens. Well, I had that reaction, and I would just fall asleep and puke for like 3 days straight. And I kept, but being the good addict that I am, I would keep trying it.
I'll get it. I was like,
this is horrible. I hate this. Why do you guys do this? Yeah, I'll try it again. You know?
Oh my
you
God.
Know? And
you were determined.
I was determined. Yeah, I'll try it again. It never stuck. But when I was clean for a while, and then you know, and then I tried it. So he did heroin, and I didn't want him to have to do it alone because of my codependency. I was like, I'll do it with you.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
So I did heroin, and then, you know, I fell in love with it. And I saw why everybody wanted it, and everybody liked it, and, you know, we were close and lovey-dovey, and you know, and I thought it was just like that one-time deal, and then a week later he wanted to do it again, and I was like, already, you know.
Oh, you really thought that he was just gonna do it that one time, and then
Yeah, I did. I was very, I didn't have a head full of recovery yet.
Sure,
I
sure.
didn't have that experience,
see.
and so when he wanted to do it again, I was like, okay, just this time though, and then we're breaking for a while, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
so,
of course.
and so we did it, but that bag that we got, it lasted 3 days, and I
Oh.
didn't know at that time that
Yeah, you
after
get
3
addicted,
days,
physically addicted.
yeah, somebody that's had a habit in the past will catch another habit in 3 days. Myself, if it's your first time, it might be 5 or 6 days. But if you've already had that, then 3 days. So he was
okay.
sick, and he was kicking after 3 days, and me being the good codependent that I
Yes,
am, didn't
yes.
want to see him kicking, so I got more, and
Oh, that's so nice.
I know, and of course I did it with him, right?
Aw.
So, next thing I know, I have a habit, and I couldn't function anymore. I couldn't, I was manager of a strip club, and I was doing parties. I managed girls on tour for oil wrestling. I couldn't do
Wow.
any of it. The only thing I could do on the side was like little bachelor parties, or like like extracurricular
Yeah.
stuff. And that's it. Like I couldn't work. And at that time,
So you were able to function to do all these all your jobs before, but it wasn't until
well, I wasn't using.
I see.
It was men and money that was my addiction.
I see.
Yeah. I mean,
Ah.
and during that time, let me tell you, during that time of my addiction being men and money, it's like I became a loan officer. I had bought properties. I was dealing in commodities. Like I was going after the big bucks,
Yeah.
And my bills alone, just in my own house, not counting the properties I had in Vegas, but my own house was $5,000 a month. So
Wow.
when I couldn't work and I couldn't function,
Yeah, that's gonna be a big bill to pay off.
It was a big bill, and I ended up, just going back to the life of crime that I grew up with,
Yes.
and he was, that guy, and we did that, and that's how I stayed afloat, and and I would blame him. I blamed him for the fact that I was loaded. I blamed him for the fact that, all of a sudden I can't work. It's your job to make sure the bills are paid now because you're the reason I'm like this.
Yeah.
That was kind of my pattern.
Of course.
I was a really good professional victim.
Oh, me too. I convinced myself very, very well.
Yes. And so yeah, and so that happened, and we ended up doing a job, a lick, and and I didn't want to do this one because I just had this gut feeling, and also it was something that I just didn't want to do, but I did it because the good codependent that I am,
Yeah.
So and that day we got in trouble.
Okay.
And I got in a high-speed chase, flipped the car,
Nice.
and again, it was my second armed robbery,
Oh, okay.
and my second strike,
Okay.
and and I ended up getting arrested and looking at a lot of time. At that time, I was looking like at 8 years or something
Okay.
like
A
that.
good little stretch.
Good little stretch, and then and so I bailed out. He wasn't able to because he also had a record. And when I got home, my husband showed up on my doorstep, and he had found out from my mom what had happened. And he said, "You don't know it, but you need me right now, and I'm not fucking going anywhere." And he fought for me, and I think that's all I really wanted. Like, I just wanted to feel loved. You know how, you get angry and you push people away, but really all you want is a hug, but you can't ask for a hug because pride and anger gets in the way,
It does,
It's like, that was why we stayed separated, you know? And so when he did that, it was like, okay, we got this. And, but I was using, and he had gotten clean again. And then, so of course he started using again with me. And
Yes, that usually happens.
yeah. And so, it was rough. It was a rough time. And during that time, I'd been arrested while I was on bail, quite a bit. I was going paralyzed. I found out that,
What?
yeah. So I had, during all this time, it all happened all at once, right? So I had I found out that I had a hold on my spinal cord. And, it started, I thought I had carpal tunnel, but I ended up going to the doctor and getting an MRI, right? And finding out that I had a spot on my spinal cord that was so thin that if somebody bumped into me, I was going to be paralyzed from the neck down.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I wouldn't have known that if you didn't ever share that.
Oh, you have no idea that side of my story. It's crazy.
Wow.
And so I went into emergency surgery, and my husband, he was with me for that, and he stayed in the hospital by my side in the hospital bed next to me, for a week during that surgery. And they and when I got out, he said, he told me, I'm going to be there for you like you were for me, know, and I said, okay, but if I leave you with a habit, you won't, because that first time, remember what happened?
Yes.
He got loaded. He went to prison, and he was there when I got home, right? And so I said, well, if you keep using, you're not going to be, because you won't be able to be, So he said, I'll get clean. Let's go get clean. And he's like, we'll go to my mom's house. And I was like, no, you need to get clean. I don't need to get clean. Ooh. You want to be there for me and prove to me that you love me, And that's what I felt, is like I still had this anger inside of me. And I was like, you're going to suffer until I say uncle.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do it any other way. And I figured that's what love was. Like, they're willing to, if they really love you, and it was totally a skewed version of love,
Yes.
And so, anyway, so, he went to his mom's house to go get clean.
Okay.
And he had 90 days clean, and I was out there, and I was getting loaded. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten arrested again while I was out on bail.
Damn.
Yes. And I had to go to court the next Monday. And I remember thinking, thinking, okay, well, I don't know if they're going to revoke my bail this time. It was like my second time getting arrested while I was out on bail. And
Jesus.
Yeah. And so I told him I should probably see you this weekend. And so I called him. I told him I should probably see you this weekend. And he's like, okay, I'm going to pick you up. I'll pick you up tomorrow, and and you can spend the weekend. And I was like, whoa, you're not calling the shot. I still was angry, know? And like, you're not running anything. I was like, I'm not going to see you both days. And mostly it was because I just wanted to stay high. And if I went with him for 2 days, then I couldn't do that, Yeah. So I was like, I'll give you one day, not both days. And he got really hurt at that. Yeah. And we got in an argument, and he told me he was tired of feeling second best, and and I was just a bitch. I was a bitch. I just really was. I wanted him to suffer until I said uncle. And and anyway, as a result of that phone call, he went and relapsed that night, and he died of a heroin overdose.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And that completely devastated me. It cracked me open. And I can tell you that, like, the 10 months after that, well, no, 10 months, probably maybe 8 months. I don't know. 8 months after that was the darkest my life had ever been. And I tried to use so many drugs to cover up that pain. And there was no amount of drugs that can cover up that level of grief, and self-loathing. I had so much self-loathing from that. Yeah. And they had let me stay out that long because of the surgery that I had on my neck. It was so extensive that they were like, she needs a year to heal before, going in. So they granted me that.
Oh,
and so,
no way.
So I was out on the streets for all this time.
Yeah.
And I was, trying to kill myself, right? Basically. Yeah. And so, and I ended up getting arrested again.
Jesus, third time?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I was a good addict. And so
made the most of it.
Yeah, and it's funny, not funny, but funny, that that I ended up getting arrested not in San Diego. I was in Vista, right?
Okay, Vista.
And or not Vista, Orange County. I don't know why I said Vista. In Orange County. I was in Orange County. And but the judge in San Diego told me on that last one, he said, make no mistake, Miss Robinson, you get arrested one more time while you're out on bail, I am giving you life in prison.
Oh.
And I got arrested again.
Pushing the envelope here.
Man, and I had my husband's ashes in my car.
Oh, shit.
Next to me, I had his stack of memorials on the dashboard. I had all of his stuff in my car because I just couldn't part with leaving it yet. I was just this ball of grief, right?
Yeah,
and
sounds like it.
And they impounded my car with my husband, and that hit me, and I was in. So they arrested me again, and I'm sitting there, and I tried to bail out, and I had almost all the money, and they raised my bail to $1 million, and they were like,
Jesus.
"You're not getting out."
Wow, they made a point.
They made a point, and they weren't offering me a deal. They said prelim set for Monday, and I had the best attorney supposedly in the world, and he was like, "Do you want to know what they're saying about you behind
It's not good.
It's not good, and they want to give you life, and they're not budging. They said that they don't want you free anymore. You're a menace to society, and and it hit me, that I could do life in prison.
Yeah.
And I was really erratic still, everything, the good professional victim that I was. And so I went to the doctor because in that high-speed chase where I flipped the car,
yes.
my hands had went through the glass, and I had glass coming out of my skin still, and so they had sent me to the doctor to get that taken care of at the jail,
yeah, of course.
And they asked me because I had a neck brace on from the surgery. I was like a mess. They're all,
and you kind of played the part here.
Yeah, they're all, why are you here? And I just like, blah, and they impounded my husband and and all this stuff. And they were like, I think you might benefit from some depression medication. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Whatever you have, it'll make me feel better. Give me that, And so, but I didn't know that came with a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation. So they stuck me in this room in what they call K-Mod, right? Where it's like all of the people that had mental health issues, and there was screaming and singing, and I was like all alone. They took away my visits and my phone calls and my shower, and they just left me in there, and all I could do was either count the spots on the wall or or scream at my husband and God, And so I did that, and I finally surrendered to the pain for the first time in my life, and I did it kicking and screaming like a victim,
Of course.
I was like, you want me to feel this effing pain? Fine, I'll feel it, and like if there really was a God, that's how I felt. You're causing, like, my whole life has been suffering and and like I didn't ask to be born, and I didn't ask for any of this, and and I'm a good person and all that stuff, And so, but I finally surrendered to the pain in that moment, and I grieved, and that was the first time in my life that I had ever allowed myself to feel pain. Like when I was younger, my father used to tell me, take it like a man. I wasn't allowed to feel. And
you weren't allowed to cry or show emotions.
No, I wasn't allowed to feel, and just like when my mom gave me the alcohol on, when I was 6 months old, just to shut me up. It's like I'm not allowed to be anything other than happy, and like definitely not feel emotions or sadness. Like take it like a man, And so I learned how to do that, but I didn't know how to feel. And so when I surrendered to that pain in that cell that day, it was 3 days of just crying and bawling my eyes out and like just feeling the pain. Normally it's like all the reasons why I shouldn't be feeling this way, all the reasons why it's somebody else's fault, what that must mean about me as a result of these feelings, right? But in that moment when I said, fine, I'll just feel it, I just felt it. And
so just decades of pain and trauma, all just bam. Right there.
Yeah, and on the other side of that pain, 3 days later, it was like I had this image of this eye of the storm. It's like there was finally this eye of freedom and peace, in the middle of the storm that I was in. And I left there, and I don't know how, because this definitely wasn't of me, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I can't explain it, but I can say that like in that moment, I knew that there was a purpose for me, and I knew that there was a purpose for everything that I had been through, you know. And I was willing to do life if that's where I was supposed to be. And I don't know where that came from, you know. I call it God, you know. But like that, it definitely wasn't me. It wasn't my mentality. It wasn't who I had trained to be my entire life, you know. But in that moment, that's how I felt, and I became willing to do life in prison, you know. And in that moment, I also knew that I wasn't going to do life in prison. It's like once I surrendered, I realized that's why I was there. I was supposed to be there to surrender, and I went to court, and I had like all these inspirations, we'll say, you know, because of being in that state of surrender. And I would tell the attorney, and, you know, and anyway, long story short, you know, I ended up switching attorneys.
Okay.
Or it got switched for me.
Okay.
That attorney did everything that I asked. And I obviously I didn't get life because I'm sitting here right now, you know, and I got to be out another 30 days and go get my husband and deal with his ashes and settle that before I had to turn myself in on my case.
Oh,
and
okay.
I ended up having to do 8 years, 8 months.
8 years in prison, 8 months.
Yeah. And well, I actually, that's not true. I got 8 years, 8 months, and I ended up doing a little over 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not like it's that much of a difference, but yes.
Right.
You got 6.
I got 6 years. You
and
know?
Then you have stayed clean and sober since that amazing.
So I wish I
experience.
could say that I stayed sober that long. You know, that's not what happened. You know, what happened for me was I started off. So with that like spiritual awakening that I had in that cell that day, right? I was in like the state of surrender, and they ended up putting me in solitary confinement for the first couple years of my stay. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Because of my neck. And so I had a hole in my spinal cord. So I didn't tell you that when I was in county jail, also I got another emergency surgery, you know, and they were telling me that I was going paralyzed from the neck down, and there was nothing I could do about it, you know,
dude.
and if I get in a fight that,
it's
you know,
done. It's over.
Yeah. So they were keeping me in solitary confinement in the skilled nursing facility.
Wow.
And so I was there alone for the first couple years, and I just did a lot of, I lived kind of like a monk in there, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
And on purpose, I did a lot of self-reflection. I learned mindfulness. I did, you know, I studied religions, and, you know, and there's a lot more. I don't want to get into all that. But what I can say is that time for me, I said, you know what, this was it. I thought it was the solution, and I could stay clean through these practices and like this. When they let me out to general population, you know, all the worldly stuff started to come back. And so, yeah. So anyway, long story short, I ended up getting loaded again in there. Okay. And I ended up putting myself into treatment while I was in there, because I realized that I am an addict, and I'm somebody that needs 12-step. You know, I can't do it all on my own. And so I ended up putting myself in treatment there, and I got out with 6 months clean is what happened. And so
it's a good start.
Yeah, you know, and so in the past, it was like I got all these suggestions. You know, I heard all the suggestions from being around the rooms for so many years, and it was always about like, oh yeah, that's good for you, not for me. And I picked and chose what was what I wanted to do. Yeah. And this time I just said, okay, you know what? Screw it. I'm tired, and I don't want to keep doing this anymore. Excuse me. No, and so I became willing to, you know, take all the suggestions. Yeah. So I took them all. Yeah. I took them all, and stay out of a relationship for the first year. You know, go to 90 meetings, 90 days. I went to like 120. Nice. Got service commitments, you know, got a sponsor, started working my steps, all that stuff. Got really gut level honest for the first time. Yeah. You know, and I got to tell you, you know, when I started this round, you know, of coming in, I thought that still, because I have this disease mind, even though this took me out before, I still thought, okay, so I'm going to do this for a year, 100%. And then at the end of the year, I'll be able to be normal.
You'll graduate?
I thought, you know, I'll be able to be normal, you know, like integrate into real world. You know,
I do that recovery thing for a year, and then I'm good.
Right. Just give it 100%. And so I gave it 100% though in that first year. And what happened for me was I realized that normal people don't plan for the day that they could drink again.
That is kind of true.
Right?
Yeah.
Normal people don't do that. And so I'm not normal. And also, as a result of it, I ended up getting so much freedom. I got all of the freedom that this program talks about, and that, inside, where I started to develop self-love, and the hardest thing for me to give up was the men.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
that.
honest,
No, yeah.
because that was my first addiction, because that was the only place I knew how to feel valued, or that I mattered, or that I loved. Like, I was taught that from an early age. I had a lot of sexual abuse, and that's the only thing that ever felt valuable. That's what everybody wanted me for, whether they took it or I gave it, that's what they wanted me for. So so for me to give that up, was the hardest thing I ever walked through, and the best thing that I ever walked through.
Right.
Because at the end of the year, all those times where it's like I wanted to reach out for validation, but I gave it to myself, and I did acts of self-love, it allowed self-love to grow.
Yeah.
And I began to feel what it feels like to be whole, and recovery for me. And obviously, so at the end of that year, I didn't want to give up anything that I've gained. I had gained so much of the freedom that it talked about here, that there was nothing that could pull me away from this life, and I just wanted more of that, and so I'm on fire for that.
Yes.
Now, so that first year though, let me tell you, it was hard and grueling, and it was the best thing that I ever did. And then I just continue that, so I use all the mindfulness practices. I use the meditation and the self-reflection and mindfulness, and I get to teach that now, because that's a huge part of it for me. Like, I hit that 4-step before, and I didn't know how to deal with emotions. Like, and people in rooms didn't know how to tell me how to deal with emotions. Just sit with it. Just feel it.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you do that? I had no idea how to do that, and I couldn't get the kind of direction. So I found that, elsewhere. Sometimes we have to do that,
Yeah, sometimes.
So in order for me to be able to get deep into my steps, I had to find other tools and direction to help me do that, and I found that. So I use it all. And, and as a result of that, it's like I get the benefits of all of it. And, today I want to say, so I have, no fronts, but in a month and a couple days, I will have 9 years.
Fuck yeah, here.
No fronts, but
no.
thank you.
Yeah.
Recovery has been such a beautiful and messy journey. It's like one of the things that I learned from that jail cell that day was to lean into my pain, without all the things all the reasons why I shouldn't be feeling this way, or why it's somebody else's fault. What I didn't realize was that at the time is like whatever we resist persists, right? Yeah. So like when we're fighting life or fighting these emotions, we make it stronger. We make them stronger. And I was just making it stronger, which is why I kept I call them God smacks. It's like I'm fighting life, and I'm keep getting smacked, and they're getting so big until I'm getting knocked out, know. And today I know that that's what's going to happen if I resist whatever's coming up in life, So
yes, I'm
still a big fan of instant gratification. I have that from my disease. Like we want it now.
We want it now, yeah.
And that's a transferable skill that I get to use towards my recovery, And now I know that when I go towards the stuff and I lean into the hard stuff and I lean into the pain without all the stories about it, I just feel whatever my relationship to the experience, what's my side of the street, what's coming up for me. And I feel that authentically and fully, it dissolves.
It does.
It dissolves and it heals. And then I no longer have to live with it. It no longer controls me. I used to live through this filter of pain And all my actions came from that. All of my reaching outward, looking for, to be filled. And it just put a Band-Aid on it of this big, gaping, bleeding, gashing wound,
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so like, this is the only way that I've found to heal that, and I lean into it and I keep doing it, and I keep getting deeper and deeper freedom through that.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful, there's been, every time and that's another thing, grateful, right?
Yeah, gratitude.
That's huge for me. Like finding what I can be grateful for in the middle of the mess, sitting in prison. It's like I was in there and I was getting a lot of growth during that period. And I would look around and I would see, like when I went to the main yard, it's like I would look around and I would see all this misery and everybody's complaining all the time. Like it's just, that area, that it's that's what you feel. That's what it is there. It's a lot of everybody's miserable. Right. Yeah. And I found peace there. Like I found, peace and that's kind of served me well, is like to be able to find what I'm grateful for in the middle of the crap, And so I use that tool in my recovery today. And sometimes the only thing I could find to be grateful for is, well, I'm about to level up, because I know on the other side of it is that freedom. Yeah. And so, but gratitude is like huge, it plays a big part in recovery, and gratitude is the cure for anxiety. And,
Yeah, you're right.
And yeah, so
not trying to control everything and trying to accept things and be grateful.
Yeah, so I have I've worked a few round of steps, and and this last year, so I kind of came, because I had that spiritual awakening before I came into recovery. Yeah. Right. I never really, and I did it like my ass depended on it this time, Yeah. I did recovery full force. Yeah. Like the whole time, because I've done all the other ways and none of them worked. So this time I did full force, and I've never taken a break from that, because I don't want to let go of any of the tools that have kept me clean, because I don't know which one of them are keeping me clean. So I do them all, Right. I just continue to do them all and balance,
Just find the one that works at the time and go with it.
Yeah. So as a result of that, I've had joy, and there's been, like, I've lost my father, so I got out and I was able to help take care of my father the last couple of years of his life.
Oh, really?
And I got to heal a lot of the core issues that I had when we were, from our past. Like, remember, he was my nemesis. And yes. So getting to leave nothing left unsaid, after dealing with, my husband's death and not being able to tell him all those things that I wish I would have, I knew, so I got to use that to help me through the death of my father, and make sure that I left nothing left unsaid, and we healed that dynamic, and as a result of that, he stopped treating me that way. Mm-hmm. He didn't change, but I changed. And so, right. And as a result of that, our relationship changed, right. And when he died, I was able to hold his hand, while he died, and through that process, and, it's like I only have gratitude, and I was able to set him free with love, right. And my mom, I got to move in with my mom, and
yes.
Help take care of my dad. And it turns out, she has become my best friend. And when I was young, mm-hmm. and I used to wish for this mom that I had really low expectations back then, and now we have this relationship that I never even knew that I could have. Yes. She's my best friend, and yes. we get to be on this recovery journey together, which I'm so grateful for. Yeah. And we work together too, and in our field that we work in. And yeah, and when we get to travel the world together, we get to do all the things, and through this path, like this process with my mom, I realized, I've done a lot of healing, and I continue to do a lot of healing in that area for all the core issues that, I had when I was young. Mm-hmm. I realized that, I still had this belief in me that if she would just I would right. feel loved,
Right.
why can't she just, ask me what happened? Or why can't she just say, I'm so sorry for everything you've been through? Why can't, you know what I mean? Because that's how I'll feel loved then.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that she, even if I got that from her, I wouldn't be able to feel it. I have to be the one that heals it.
Yes.
Because I have gotten that from her, but there was still that empty hole, and still that this place where I didn't have the receptors for it to come from outside of me at all, and so I had to heal that stuff. I continue to heal that stuff, and it keeps getting deeper and deeper, and and I get to release her from that too, because she is an amazing woman, and she's done so much in her own recovery, and she's doing exactly what she can, and it's a lot, and I'm really grateful for her. She's amazing. Our relationship is amazing, and what I realized also from working the steps is they've done the best they can with what they knew at the time, just like I did.
Yeah.
And so, I'm really grateful, and so I heal my own receptors now. I know that it can't come from her. It can't come from anywhere outside of me.
It comes within you.
It's within me, and as a result of that, our relationship has skyrocketed too, and I can say that today it's I get to, the men's process is so amazing. We get so scared of making amends our first round. It's gosh, I have to take responsibility for this stuff.
I struggle with that too.
Okay. So that's one of my favorite steps now, because the amends process just becomes so beautiful, and so integrated in, and it feels just so, what's the word I'm looking for? It talks about doing esteemable acts, right?
Yes.
And and how that really helps to make us whole, and fill that void.
Right.
It's not about anything outside of us. It's about us. Integrity is what you're doing when nobody's looking, right?
Yes.
And that stuff. So my amends has morphed, through the years, and started off as the surface stuff, but even with my husband. Even with, remember I told you about, when I was bullied when I was young, and I set out to beat up every girl, and I became the bully, right? I became the bully, and I got to, and I got, we'll call it victimized, right? I got victimized a lot by men, and so I really I thought I hated women. I thought I hated women because of all the trauma that I had from women. So I never really let myself get close to women after that. When I snapped that day in junior high school, it's no, I kept them at an arm's distance, and I was mean to women first so that they would stay away from me.
Yeah.
And the only ones I hung out with were the ones that were like me, and we would go hang out with fellas, but we didn't talk about girl stuff. We didn't talk about, I didn't know how to have those kinds of conversations with women. And with men, the only value that I felt was, how hot I could be and how much they wanted me,
Right.
And so, but cutting all that off and giving it to myself is it's all this new stuff started to emerge. And so, recovery taught me in that first year, right, to not hang out with the men, to hang out with the women, and all that stuff they say. And I never caught that before, and I never did that before. This time, when I told you, I took all the suggestions, and so I would put myself around women, and it was so awkward, especially especially when I took away my coping skill of being violent or mean or a bitch, It's taking that away, that was my only protection. All of a sudden, I'm vulnerable. I feel really awkward. Not only do I have nothing to contribute to this conversation because I don't know how to talk like a girl, I also,
like a nice girl.
like a nice girl, right? And I didn't know how to talk like a nice girl, like a girly girl, and I didn't know how to be vulnerable. But I would put myself in the middle of it. Remember, I said leaning into pain, right?
Yeah.
So that's been my theme and throughout my recovery is okay, going towards the things that are uncomfortable because I'm a fan of instant gratification. And I know if I don't lean into it, I'm going to make it stronger. So whatever we resist persists. I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to resist it. So I go towards that shit on purpose, you know? And I put myself in the middle of conversations feeling so awkward, and I would just breathe. I would just breathe, and I'd hear people talking about boys and the stuff, and I didn't never have those conversations. And my head would tell me I have nothing to contribute to this conversation, but I would just sit there, and I kept putting myself in the awkward situations till, I started to relax and get comfortable, and I started to feel different. It started to change,
I see.
and and so as a result of that, I realized, man, and also like in working my steps, I realized in going through all of the pain that I caused women, because I victimized women.
Yeah.
I ran a strip club, and I wanted what I could get out of them,
Yeah.
and so I victimized women, and
Yeah,
I was mean to women.
it's a business where it's like, you have to kind of, like have standards, I guess.
Well, maybe you think of them as your business, right? But
yes.
but I think for me it was more than that. For me it was all the years of pain and that and I not respecting myself.
Yeah.
That I didn't respect women.
Yes.
And so I victimized them, and so as a result of like working my steps and doing this amends process, it's like that's why today, like, I am the first one to go up to a newcomer and make sure they feel comfortable. I want everyone to know they're safe, that I feel their pain. And so women to me today are the most important thing, and not that men aren't, men are important, but I mean, for me, that's why I always want a woman to feel safe in my presence. I want them to know that I can meet them at their pain. And I get it, I want to, it's part of my amends process to do that. And that's what feels like, it's that esteemable act, but it's like, it fills that hole in me. I heal when I do get to do that, and that's part of my living amends. It's part of my living amends to, you were going to ask me about Dollface Club.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of that. So it's another part of that spinoff is all the popular girls and stuff. I did not get along with them. I beat them all up when I was really young, because I didn't fit in and because I was bullied, And so when I never felt like I fit in. So for me, Dollface Club was a way of making friends with the parts of myself that I've rejected. And being there for others. What Dollface Club represents is a strong sisterhood of women being supportive of each other, and giving back to the community, in various ways but together. And it's so for me, it's saying, come on, let's do this together. You're a part of, because I never felt a part of, so getting to, no matter who you are, if you're a woman, they say in our program, right? You remember when you say you are? Same with Dollface Club. People ask all the time, how do I become a member? You show up,
Oh, you don't get jumped in?
You don't get jumped in. You show up, you say, I want to do service, and you come do it. You want to come hang out, you come hang out. If you feel awkward, I get it. So come hang out with me and tell me you feel awkward, because I will make sure that, that I meet you there, and we could do this together, because I felt awkward and I knew what that was like, And so, for me, it's it's been part of my healing journey, to be a part of this and using all those skills that I got, that I had while I was out there, putting on events for strip clubs and all of that. I get to do that now for Dollface Club. These are all transferable skills that we get to use in our life,
Right.
And there's a reason why, we have been on our journeys. We get to use all that stuff, And so, Dollface Club is really a beautiful, movement.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because you were saying about, I totally see it, because I remember I had my own event, and I don't know how to fucking throw anything together, man. I'm such an introverted fucking human fucking being. I was introverted way before it was cool, and fucking fucking Sage, actually really helped me out and guided me during that 1 year party. And hearing your story, I totally like put all the pieces together, and like how you had, all these skills, while you're in your addiction, and you're using it for service, and you're using it for like awareness and recovery. And it's such a beautiful thing, what you have been able to accomplish. And I also just, as like just a personal thing, I've just always felt like you're the most like welcoming person I've ever, in the rooms. Cause sometimes people can be, a little standoffish or a little shrug, but Sage will always like, what I mean? Like just like you have like that energy, you know what I mean? Like you just want to like the room almost. And it's really awesome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me, because I probably was the one that was the most standoffish and the most violent,
Yeah.
I learned at an early age that, the more crazier I could be, the more violent I could be, the more I was protected.
Right.
And so I set off to do that. So, I have to do the opposite in my recovery.
Right.
And so for today, I want everyone to feel safe around me. And I want everyone to know that I get it. I want everyone to feel welcome. And so that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
absolutely.
that.
Is there I know that you so you are throwing events and stuff like that for Dollface Club. Is there anything that's coming up? Any sort of projects or any sort of thing that you're in the works of?
Well, yeah, for Dollface Club, we have an event usually every month. We try and get one in every month.
Yeah.
Our next one, we're going into, a homeless shelter. I don't know if we're allowed to say names on here. A homeless shelter. Yeah. We're going into a homeless shelter where they have, families, and so we get to do makeovers with the families and the kids, and bring in, donations. We do different stuff depending on the need. Wherever we're called, we just kind of go, because Lord knows we've taken enough from our community when we were all getting loaded. So this is our way of doing service and giving back to society, and making a positive impact rather than a negative one. And we get to do this together. We get to be this strong sisterhood of women, and be there for each other, and none of us are perfect, but together we are as a whole, we are. And so I love doing this work. I love Clea that she started this work, and getting closer to her over the years. It's like she's one of my best friends now. And, and she called me up one day and she's like, I have this idea, I want to do a documentary for we've been losing, everybody from fentanyl, as it's like, it's left and right. I lost a sponsee. We're losing people. It's painful. It's tragic. And I get it, because my husband died.
Yeah.
And it's the most painful thing that someone can go through,
It is.
And for that area, it's like, I've got to, so she called me one day and she's like, I want to do a documentary, on this fentanyl overdose epidemic. And I was like, yes, everything in me was like, yes, let's do this. We need to bring awareness. Cause at that time, nobody was seeing, everybody still judged the fentanyl, for okay, the junkie. It's the junkies that are dying,
Of course.
Not that there's anything wrong with junkies, cause I'm a junkie. Do you know what I mean?
I am one too.
But society in general, we need to bring awareness to this. It isn't just the junkies anymore, you know? And not that's any less, but it's also, it's affecting, and they're not even using needles anymore,
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's this stuff is on everything, and it's killing everyone from, from the kid that's still in junior high school, to the, I just lost the friend that I first did heroin with, and she was I don't know, 60 or something, and so it's affecting all walks of life, every area, and it's important that we bring awareness to this to our society, because it can affect you, your family, your kids. They're using one time and they're dying. It's not like you're going out and getting an addiction. When we were young, we used to be able to experiment. You can't do that now.
No, not at all.
it's on everything. It's on the weed, it's in the pills, it's like, and it's killing them. So, you know, absolutely. So everything in me said yes. And like, as I'm doing this with her, we have this nonprofit now called Nobody Plans on Dying that we also pulled in another friend of ours, Layla, and like, and us three together, we started this nonprofit called Nobody Plans on Dying, you know, and
that's so awesome.
And our plan is to complete this documentary that we've been working on and get it into the schools and get to go speak with all the schools and possibly Netflix and all this stuff. We have we have the ins for all of it, and so, you know, fingers crossed, and we'll see what happens. But you know, I know that I'm not in control. Like, this is a higher power situation, but I can say that every little bit of it, it's like I get to talk to my husband, you know, and I know that, like, it's like, this is part of my amends. You know, this is part of my amends. Like, I couldn't help him, you know, but I can help others. And, you know, it's part of my living amends. So it means so much to me to be able to be a part of this movement, you know, because it's what it is. It's a movement, you know.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, getting to do that, you know, I got to also, I've been working in treatment for, you know, for many years, and like, and getting to help in that way. And again, you know, like, it's part of my living amends, you know, and that's not my primary job anymore. Like, now I moved over more towards like the other realm that helps me, right? For my own, to give that part, you know, and that it's like I get to live a purpose-driven life today,
right?
You know, and I'm really freaking grateful. Like, I feel I have no idea where I'm going. All I know is that, you know, that I keep doing the next indicated thing. Like, throughout recovery, there's a couple things, right? One, recovery has been a process of becoming unapologetically, authentically myself. You know, I had no idea who I am. You know, and some days I still don't know, but I just live in truth to the best of my ability. And that's my authentic self, you know? And like, and you get deeper and deeper and deeper until you are just this being, you know, that's like living in purpose and doing the next indicated thing, you know? And so I go where I'm called, and wherever I feel inspired to go now, you know, and that's kind of how I live my life. And it hasn't turned me wrong. Like, everything that's happened that's good in my life has been a result of doing service. Like, everything, like, even working in treatment, it was like I was doing service and I was invited, and you know, and you know, to backtrack a little bit, like, even, you know, my me going paralyzed, right? I touched on that a little bit. They told me that there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going paralyzed. I want to let you know that, you know, I had 3 surgeons tell me that there's nothing I can do, that I'm going paralyzed because I'm leaking spinal fluid. And they told me I shouldn't exercise. And they told they told me, because I leak spinal fluid if I strain my neck and all this stuff, you know, that they told me. And, you know, I won't go through the whole story of that. If you want to know, you could ask me later, but I will say that I have just allowed, you know, my higher power to guide me in that, you know, and I don't hold anything as absolute. Like, they said that, okay, great, but they're not the ultimate decider here, you know, like, you know, I'm just my body will tell me what I can and can't do, and my higher power will show me what I can and can't do, you know, and like, that's kind of like, that's how I lived, and that's how it's helped me throughout my recovery to navigate. And as a result of that, you know, I did start exercising, and I realized that, you know, my body felt better when I exercised. Started to get circulation. I had a walker. I had a walker. I looked like, you know, and like, yes, really.
I'm laughing because Sage she looks like she's in very good shape.
So it's crazy. I'm a personal trainer now.
Yeah, and I was about to mention that.
Yeah, like, you know, exactly. And so
you went from like someone that probably never gonna walk again. And been diagnosed as crippled for life by 3 professional people.
On paper, I still am.
To like extremely like fit, and not only that, a personal trainer. Helping other people get fit.
I realized a lot of the limitations that we put on ourselves are in our mind, and if we believe what they say, then I would have stuck with that.
Absolutely.
But because I didn't, you know, it's like I hold it don't get me wrong, I hold it in my consciousness, and I'm not. I know I'm not invincible.
Of course.
You know, it
of
has
course.
humbled me quite a bit because I was this extreme sports person before, and I can't. There's some things I can't do. I have some limitations now.
Okay.
But like I've allowed myself to surrender into those limitations. It's been, you know, it was a painful process. There was, you know, I had to go through all the things you think someone might go through from that. Like getting told they're going paralyzed from the neck down. My husband's dead. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to wipe my ass? Like, oh my God, like all that stuff, you know?
Oh my God, that's so fucking awesome.
You know, but like all that stuff you would expect. But like as a result of that and like surrendering to even that, you know, it's like here I am and I sit in front of you, and every year I go get an MRI so they can take a look. And, you know, there's no degeneration and they cannot explain it. I had 3 different surgeons tell me that I was going paralyzed from the neck down and there was nothing I could do about it. I wanted 3 different opinions because I didn't, you know, and like, and today I go to the doctor and I get an MRI. I have no idea what the future is going to be later, but I can say that, you know, it's been many years. That was since 2010.
Okay.
And so every year I go to the doctor, I get a new MRI, and every year there's no degeneration and they can't explain it.
Right.
You know, according to them, I wasn't even supposed to exercise. And so, of course, I became a personal trainer. Right?
That's a really cool fuck you.
Well, I just realized, you know, the limitations are the limitations that we put on our mind, and and we all have our own struggles. And so, like, and again, it was like I was doing it in service to help others, and as a result, I became a personal trainer. Like everything that I do in life had to do with me doing it for myself first, then being in service to others, and then it became a career. You know, it became part of my story and my career and where I'm going. Like I just go where I'm led. And first I heal me, then I help others, and then it takes me to do that even more and expand it. And like, so that's kind of what I do, and that's so awesome. How my life is going. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. You know, I can say that, you know, that I completed school like several times in different areas, and I'm still in the process of completing a couple different things, you know, and like, and I'm going after my dreams, and and you know, I sometimes I have no idea how I'm even working with some of the people that I work with in this world, because they are world changers in this planet, and I think of, wow, you know, I'm just this person who, you know, grew up the way I grew up, you know, and like, and I was destined for that lifestyle, and like, and I don't know how I'm sitting here, you know, with these people, you know, getting to do this amazing work into this world. Like I haven't, you know, I don't know. And I don't, it's not for me to know, but I just go where I'm led. Yeah. So, you know, I just, you know, we'll see as the story unfolds, but it's really exciting.
Oh, it's so really awesome. Exciting. It's so fucking awesome.
Life is exciting today.
Fuck yeah. Like I said, I mean, I totally, I respect your hustle. But more importantly, like, you know, you just touched on, like, you know, it all just kind of everything that you have done from when you first got clean, or, you know, whatever, you started your recovery journey this time around to right now. It's all because of service, and it's something that it resonates with me as well, you know, because I definitely, like, you know, did my fair share of being a menace to society, and I did my fair share of being part of the problem, and I just want to be a better person, you know. I don't want to just not use drugs and all that, and just try to be normal. I want to, you know, just give back, man. But this gift I've been given, man, because you know, for me speaking, you know, I could have, you know, fucked off and died 1,000 fucking times, and here I am alive and shit, and I get to, you know, work in treatment, and I get to, you know, raise awareness and all that stuff. And it's just, I just relate a lot. It's not something I ever saw coming. It's just fucking came, and I'm keep going.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you sharing your story, and you know, I just feel like I could relate so much to it, and I really appreciate you coming on here again. Like you're a fucking amazing fucking woman in recovery, and I really appreciate everything you do again. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if if anybody can get anything out of it, it's that, you know, fucking recovery is fucking possible.
It's possible. And not even just that, man. Everything that I've always been searching for, right? Everything that I was always searching for
Right.
outside of myself, I found in myself through this program.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it not just in myself. That's in my higher power, but like,
Yes.
but like it's all here. It's all within me.
Yes.
You know, and so I just want to say that, you know, like it's it. Just come find yourself. It's here. This is
Yeah.
a program of becoming unapologetically, authentically you. We need you in this world. We don't
Right.
need, you know,
The surface.
we don't need the surface. We don't need any more of that. You know, we need you, authentic you.
Yeah.
You know, so
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming on, Sage. I really appreciate it. All right.
thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.